Hey listeners, you're listening to the Midnight Readers podcast. Grab some tea, a midnight snack, and cuddle up in bed as we dive deep into today's most popular fantasies, sci-fi, and mysteries. We're your hosts. I'm Lily.
I'm Brittany.
And I'm Christy.
This season we'll be discussing the heart-pounding military fantasy that's part Hunger Games and part How to Train Your Dragon. That's right, grab your flight jacket, we're headed to Sgaeyl.
A dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A reader without their book or this podcast is dead. Welcome to the revolution. My best advice, don't die and don't worry. We most likely won't need our allies.
In this episode, we'll be discussing part 3 of Fourth Wing, chapters 22 through 30, where war games have begun and Violet's story turns towards romance as she tries to get to know the man she's tied to for the rest of her life, however long that might be.
Before we get into it, this is your warning for major spoilers ahead. This includes potentially all Empyrean series materials, including bonus chapters and interviews with the author. We're also avid fans of the Moss universe and might accidentally let spoilers slip for other popular romantasy book series as well. Sorry in advance. Like the books, this podcast is rated R, so be warned.
Also, a friendly reminder to please like, subscribe, and follow. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and YouTube.
Alright, last we left off, Violet was attacked in her sleep and the wing leader responsible was executed, putting a major crimp in Violet and Dane's relationship. Violet also got her first real hints that something might be a little off with this war that they're fighting. And in this section, we first find our Violet sparring in the gym with Rhiannon. And who shows up but one Xaden Ryerson, and he's shirtless. And I must say something that y'all are going to be like, Brittany, what the fuck? Why the fuck are you bringing this up? But I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
And not a lot of people that I've talked to have understood my reasoning, but I get weird looks when I mention it. So I guess it could be considered a little controversial, maybe an unpopular opinion. I don't know, but I'm going to preface it with I am asexual, probably biromantic. Maybe even a little demisexual if we get into the nitty gritty of my sexuality. So when I say this, I'm talking about aesthetics, not attraction, but I personally think that the female body is practically perfect. The curves of it, the flow of the body is just perfect to me, which, you know, for me, it brings up a religious point of if God was going to make somebody in his image, it would probably be a woman. And not a man. A man's body, on the other hand, heart-stoppingly gorgeous from the waist up.
I can't. Starting the episode off real strong.
Yeah. For me, a man shirtless wearing loose, low-hanging pants is just like jaw-droppingly drool-worthy. Like sometimes when I'm on Instagram, I'll be scrolling and I'll come across an image like that and I'll just like lose all reality and just stare for a minute. But as soon as they take off their pants, it's done. I'm like, you lost some points for me. And I don't understand why in books some authors will have characters describe a penis as pretty or beautiful, because it's not to me. Do I enjoy a penis? Yes. Do I want to stare at it? No. But so for me, this scene with Xaden and Garrick shirtless sparring is like, oh, the image is so viscerally in my head that I'm just like, this is my fantasy right here. When I fantasize about a boy, that's what they look like.
Until they drop their pants.
Yeah, and then we can turn off the lights.
Falling off.
Then we can turn off the lights. But for me,
I feel like on the other end of the spectrum, I feel like I'm unimpressed typically when a man takes off his shirt. I'm just like,
really?
You know? I mean, I get the appeal. I like the idea of a well-sculpted man, right? But I'm not immediately turning around and being like, oh my God, staring, you know what I mean? Like stopping what I'm doing. I'm not Violet in this situation.
And see, for me, it does have to be a well-sculpted body. It cannot be flabby. Otherwise, I'm not interested. And I know that makes me a hypocrite because my body is not exactly well-sculpted. But I'm also not looking to sleep with them either. I just want to stare.
That's what I was going to ask, because I was going to be like, okay, but for someone who's asexual, but then you clearly want to look at them, but it's not for sexual reasons.
I don't get it. But that's just how I feel. And I've had that thought for quite a while, was just like, I like looking at a man from the waist up. The rest of him, not appealing so much, unless it's in the dark.
It's interesting. Okay.
It's a preference. It is a preference.
Where did this come from?
I'm picturing Brittany on a date and the guy taking off his shirt. And she's like, oh yeah, come on, buddy. And he drops his pants and she's like, whoa.
She's like, okay, put your pants back on.
And we're done.
Your pants back on. That's enough for me.
Yeah, see, I just like looking.
Hey, you know what you
I
like.
can't relate. Yeah, I can't relate. But I get it.
So literally, when I fantasize, that's what I would picture. But it's also in scenes like this, my body is kind of compelled. When I see it so well in my head, my body is sometimes compelled to actually act things out. So like when Rhiannon hits her with the stick and I'm sitting there listening to it, or with the staff, I flinch along with her.
I mean, it just means you're like really in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just like super in the moment.
Yeah.
But I think that Rhiannon is such a sweet friend to try to get her to work her anger out on the mat.
That is true. I wish when I was younger, I asked my dad for a punching bag to put in the garage because of my anger issues. And I just wanted to beat the crap out of something. We did not get a punching bag.
Rhiannon gave Violet what she needed, and that was a way to work out her anger and maybe the sexual tension that is lingering in the air.
Although she was right, Rhiannon was taking it easy on her. She should have not done that.
Yes. Also, that scene where they're just like staring at them is just so funny.
Oh my god, I quote it like, we could just be looking at them for technique. We could be. We absolutely could be. But I'm not.
Holy fucking hot. I did notice that in this scene, I feel like it's probably not on the page, but I feel like every other guy in the room is also watching. And they're also like, what the fuck?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm for sure positive that Riddick would be if Imogen hadn't been choking him the entire
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Yeah. Also, this is the first scene that Violet notices Xaden's scars.
Yes.
On his back.
Yeah.
She does make a note that I want to talk about. The relic on his back for his dragon is shoulder to shoulder. She says it's the biggest one she's ever seen. But it's also his rebellion relic goes from wrist to chin, and it's the only one that goes that far. Garrick's goes to his shoulder. I think Imogen's goes to her elbow. Why the difference in size? What does that mean?
But wasn't his dad the leader
curious.
of the rebellion? So
Yes.
maybe that has to do with it.
I was like, maybe it's about power. Maybe it's about Xaden's the oldest. Maybe it's about, I don't know.
What if two theories. Either one, I think I mentioned this in the previous episodes, but I think there is a possibility that they could channel from the relics because they're made by the dragons. I don't know if that's a realistic theory, but that would be fun. The opposite of that would be, what if the relics are actually holding power in of some kind, like actually preventing them from being more strong?
I like your first theory.
That would be crazy. Yeah, I think both are good. I like
the first one because I think somewhere along the line we're going to find out that the dragons are working with the opposite side. At least some of them are, and that would make sense if they were the ones that kind of created the relics and not inadvertently, but kind of under the radar, they're helping them, even though the command thinks that it's some sort of like prisoner tattoo kind of thing. That would be awesome.
Well, we know from we know from Iron Flame that it had to do with that rune rock a little bit. And it also had to be, their parents executed by dragonfire. But if it is powered by a dragon, are they all bonded to Coda?
I don't know. I considered that, but I just feel like just because Coda is the one that made the relics doesn't necessarily mean we don't know enough about Coda at this point to think that it would be a bad thing,
Yeah.
There's so many things we don't know about the dragons that they're keeping secret.
Yeah. And there is that one heading, I think, somewhere in one of the books where it was like, we don't know why the dragons decided to only bond one rider instead of two. Makes you think, can they bond two or more?
Yeah. I think there's a lot more to them. And the fact of the matter is Onyx Storm is not the last book. So we don't really know what the true ending is. And I think we are going to find out at some point that you've got at least some amount of dragons that are not fighting for their side.
Yeah.
They're actually on the rebellion side.
And I think we brought this up in the last episode. I can't remember if we did, but we kind of talked about why are they not bonding? Because there's multiple times especially in this book where they mention, oh, the dragons are not bonding like they used to. It's like, why? What is the reason? Is it because of, it doesn't make sense if it's because of the stuff with the griffins. You would think that if they cared about fighting the griffins, then they would bond more dragons. But we obviously know that the dragons know that the griffins are not the problem. The dragons know that the wyverns are the problem. So why wouldn't they bond?
What if they are bonding?
Yeah.
Just not with them.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Okay, so
yeah.
In a recent interview with Rebecca Yaros, she was talking about Onyx Storm. I saw, and it's not a Onyx Storm spoiler or anything, but she did say something that was like, what the fuck? And it was, how do we know the dragons are giving their true names when you go to threshing? And how do you know that the writers are reporting the dragons' true names? Are they lying? So their records of who bonded who could be way off.
Yeah.
That is just so crazy because why would that matter?
Well,
what would it change?
We saw a record error with Xaden. They thought his great uncle or something was the one who bonded Sgaeyl when it was really his grandfather.
Right. And this makes me wonder how it could tie in with Naelin. Because I don't know, I really feel like the Naelin thing it's so much more important than we realized at this point in the series. Yeah. Even in Iron Flame, I feel like there's so much with the Naelin stuff and with the fact that Tairn bonded him
and refuses to talk about him
and will not talk about him. Exactly. So just every part of me is like, there's something going on with that. I don't know what it is, but it's a big deal. And Brennan has to know something because Brennan was there and he's not talking about it. Why isn't he talking about it? You know what I mean? We've gone way off from Sparring, but it's just, this is super important.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts about this series is that whole theory that the dragons are, they're not on their side really. And that you've got more and more kind of defecting to the rebellion.
Right. Mm-hmm. That they just have a mind of their own. Mm-hmm. They're doing what they want.
There are some people, and I don't know how much I believe this, and probably not at all, but there are some people who think that maybe even the dragons are bad guys.
I could see that. I mean, why wouldn't there be bad dragons if there was good dragons? Because, I mean, there's Solas in Iron Flame, right? So if there's a dragon who has the ability to make a bad decision,
Are you saying, though, Brittany, all of the dragons or just some?
No, there was some implication from a reader that maybe even the dragons are working for the Venin or with the Venin. I don't know
maybe
why
the dragons
would.
Also think that turning with the Venin would be like turning Wyvern or something could be like a beneficial thing. I don't know.
What if the Venin are not the bad guys?
I don't know. I think it's possible, but what is going on with them?
Well, we'll have to discuss more in Iron Flame and Onyx Storm because we don't really know that much about them here. Plus, we we don't really have answers, so.
It's not fair because Christy Googles the answers and then I'm the only one that's sitting here without anything.
That was the only part. I was just the second signet that I Googled. That was it. Well, blame Brittany. She kept talking about it and texting about it. It made me want to know.
It's Brittany's fault. At this point, as we're recording, Brittany has finished Onyx Storm and Christy and I have not.
I needed to talk to somebody.
Sorry.
Anyway, Jack
back
is
to
there.
Xaden's back scars and his relic.
I honestly, fewer dragons are bonding. But if we notice, a lot of the signets are more powerful or more rare. Because when I was reading it, I was like, oh, okay, Rhiannon gets a rare signet. Violet gets a rare signet. Xaden's got a rare signet. Dane's got a rare signet.
I also think it's weird that summoning is a rare signet, if I'm being honest.
That's true.
Now,
you would think that summoning would be a common one.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
Oh, I had a question. Brittany, do you know, and actually Lily, you might know this too, when you say rare signets, do any of the assholes have rare signets, or is it just this small kind of faction that have ended up with a lot of rare signets?
What do you mean the assholes?
Well, like Jack.
Well, I mean, Jack Barlow has a signet. We don't even really know what it is.
Yeah. He uses his signet. Well, he uses a power on the mat with Violet, and people assumed it was his signet. But now we don't know. Was it his signet or was it channeled
something
power?
else?
But basically all the riffraff, other than those immediately around Violet and theirs. Does anybody else, or all of the rare signets going to those mostly rebellion riders? You know, some are not, but
Mending.
I mean, Dane wasn't a rebellion rider, and he has a rare signet.
Who?
Dane.
Yeah, but he's still in that same little faction with them. I mean, he's kind of an asshole, but at this point, at least,
at this point, the problem is that we don't know enough about other people's signets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just curious if, like, Bob down the hall has a rare signet as well. It goes into the theory. So if it really is kind of a small faction that are ending up with rare signets, then it could be that the dragons are choosing how to channel to ensure that certain people get rare signets and powerful signets.
I mean, Riddick got a common signet.
Riddick is common though, but that's why we love him.
I can't. You just call him common? He's one of the best characters.
Yes, I love him. But it would not work if he was fancy. He has to be common. That's just his.
I would say Sawyer is common, but he got the cool metallurgy thing.
Sawyer's like the Superman. I mean, don't get me wrong. I named a cat after him. So I love his character, but he's kind of like the Superman.
Yeah.
He's like a kind of a dull,
A normal man
rules.
that puts on a hero. Mm.
At least so far. Maybe in Onyx Storm, he shakes it up a little. Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so Jack is there, and I was just like, what kind of shitty-ass villain is he that he announces his weakness in front of everybody?
He's not very good at this.
And I will have to say this, I love that Xaden stands behind Violet, Garrick's to her side, Rhiannon's there, Imogen's there, and she knows it's not for her or whatever. At least at this point, she thinks it's not for her. But Dane's over there. He's not joining them. He's just going to chastise her.
No.
And I'm like...
He's like, don't incite him. It's like, how about you mind your own fucking business?
Yeah.
Dane Atos.
You haven't spoken to me in months, and this is the first thing you're going to say, and you're going to be disappointed that I looked at Xaden, and fuck you, bitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. Dane's kind of a dumbass.
Yeah.
I have an entire rant on him when we get to Montserrat.
Fantastic.
Just so you know.
Can't wait.
Yeah. I am ready.
We ready to talk about that kiss?
Okay, why is the kiss your trademark, Lily?
Because it's the kiss. What do you not get? the kiss
So,
TM.
yeah, for the listeners, Lily put
the
in the
kiss,
notes
capital noun.
the capital kiss with the little trademark symbol next to it.
As I was rearranging the notes, I was like, you know what? It is the kiss that we have to talk about because as the three of us know, this is the first time that Xaden and Violet kiss, and it is so heart-wrenchingly desperate that you can't just love it. It's like a moment that we always go back to.
It's also the moment Xaden thinks that he fell in love with Violet.
Right?
I personally, I'm like, no, you loved her from the moment you saw her. I'm just saying.
And it's probably the first time she channels and she doesn't realize it.
Yeah, I think she definitely channels.
Yeah.
And
which we talked about, did we talk about Lilith possibly being able to affect the weather and therefore maybe Violet might be able to affect the weather? It's snowing during this, right?
Yeah. There's all kinds of interesting weather when something interesting is happening to Violet.
Right. Yeah. Which I don't think is a full coincidence, but back to the kiss.
So this is another one of those scenes that's on my I need a Xaden point of view list.
Yeah.
And I'm not the biggest fan of the dialogue in this scene.
No, it's so goofy.
But I love it.
Okay, I liked it. That was my favorite part with like the word wars.
Well, I love that she's like, were you always this tall? But him responding, no, I was a child once, kind of felt disingenuine.
I love the sarcasm.
I don't know.
I loved it.
I personally, my favorite part of the scene dialogue-wise is when he's like, ask me nicely.
Yes.
And I was like, bitch, you are devious?
Yes.
You are devious.
So,
and fuck it.
Let me ask this before we really get into it, because I would just like a little clarification. Okay. So, what kind of drives it in the first place, right? Is like the dragons getting busy, correct? How the fuck is this whole school not bunny humping all over the place? Because everybody's got their dragons. Everybody has that same connection. And I realize they're not maybe getting with each other right then, but you got to figure they're all having sex at some point. So, I mean.
Maybe they are. I think a lot of the cadets are bunny humping.
Yeah, she said that the quadrant was kind of like, we're all going to die tomorrow hedonism. And Miro was like, yeah, sleep with whoever. Just don't sleep outside of your year. She's like, you should sleep.
We just don't hear from everyone else that maybe the dragons sometimes cause it. I don't know. Who's to say that
would
they
make
don't?
sense? Because, that was my question of how the hell is anybody getting anything done around here unless the dragons coordinate when they have sex? Because if they're doing it every day, I mean.
There is a theory from a reader, and I can't remember who it was, and I don't agree with it, but I figured I'd bring it up. They think that maybe Tairn and Sgaeyl orchestrated their sex life in order to influence Xaden and Violet.
That's kind of creepy. Just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It's a little weird. A little bit
telling
too
your
much.
Daughter to get her some or something. I don't know.
Oh my God. Not the daughter thing.
It is, though. He's kind of like sort of a daddy figure.
They think of humans as their pets, and you breed your pets.
Shut up. Shut up. That's worse. That makes the kiss less fun.
I know. That's why I was like, I don't agree with it. I think that Tairn would not do that.
No.
I think.
Yeah.
And it does, a lot of people bring up some consent issue here, even though Xaden very specifically says, I think that you need to be consenting.
Clear of mine. Mm-hmm.
As he's super jealous of Liam. Part of me...
Oh, that's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, part of me wanted to have a scene where Violet, influenced by Tairn, kind of hits on Liam in front of Xaden, and then it's like, ooh, okay.
When he hears about it, when he hears that Violet had some inclination, just the tiniest inclination towards Liam, he's livid. There's that POV where he's like, Liam is too good looking, but he wouldn't do that to me.
But you don't like her, remember?
To assign him.
But you don't have feelings for her, remember?
Remember? I love Garrick.
Garrick is one of my favorites.
Yes, he's fantastic. But moving on, past the kiss, we talked a little bit about Jack's oranges. We talked a little bit about his signet and slightly about the venom power, but we haven't talked about them sparring too much. Do we want to discuss it anymore?
I mean, it is important to note that Violet did recognize a red ring around Jack's eyes in this sparring match.
Right.
So it is the first indication that Jack has turned venom, although she doesn't recognize it for what it is. When do y'all think he turned?
He's a venom baby.
It's really a hard question. Do you think that maybe this is the moment that he channels for the first time?
I don't know about for the first time. I feel like he did it before. Maybe after the scene.
Yeah.
In that Xaden Garrick sparring chapter. Because he was like piss pants staring at Xaden.
Yeah.
It could have been after he bonded a lesser dragon.
I could see it being after he bonded the dragon and didn't feel like he was powerful enough. It really makes me wonder further what his signet is, because if he didn't feel like his signet was enough.
Yeah.
Or maybe his signet is siphoning. Maybe he naturally is inclined to channel. You know what I mean? As someone who siphons. I don't know.
Someone who siphons generally takes power from others. So I could see it. I don't know if they necessarily have to transfer it to another person the way Sloane did.
Right.
But, so the dragons don't like the venom at this point. So how is...
As far as we are aware.
So how is Jack's dragon not reacting to him? The dragon has to know something's wrong with him.
He has to know.
For real. For real. That was one of my big questions, which we should talk more about in Iron Flame when we get to that.
Yeah.
But it is important to note, why didn't Bade go to the dragons and be like, my rider has turned?
Yeah.
Yeah. I will note, which one of you said, I think Brittany said that all of the recent signets, or a lot of the recent signets, are the rarer ones?
Yes.
I did note in our notes that, I did note down that Rhiannon's supposedly hasn't been seen in over 100 years, according to Violet. This is on page 284. She says it's rare and it's very useful. And even though I noted here that I thought it was odd that it was a rare signet, because you'd think that summoning would be a more common one, now that I'm rereading that quote, it does make me wonder if something's going on that on a larger scale. Oh, we haven't seen this in 100 years? Okay, is there a prophecy? Is there something on a larger scale that's happening now that Andarna's back? Or like Andarna's a special kind of dragon or whatever?
Well,
which we can discuss later.
Like Andarna said, nature likes everything in balance.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Could be that
I also
the
noted,
Venin are more powerful than they've been in forever.
It's true. I also noted the part where it describes his signet, which it says, agony fills every cell in my body as violent, vibrating energy rips through me with an intensity that makes it feel like he's cleaving ligament from bone, muscle from tendon. I scream as I'm shaken by an internal force I don't understand, as though he's forcing his own power into my body, shocking me with 1,000 stings of vibrating energy.
And somebody put on the internet, again, I don't remember who, but they said it's funny how if this is his signet, isn't it funny how shockingly similar it is to lightning?
Yeah, except for
stings
and it vibrates.
And except for he has to put his hands on people. So
sorry.
It is very much like lightning, except for it has to be up close and personal, whereas Violet can kill from a distance because she doesn't want to be around it.
Right. You know what that just came to my brain? I noted here, why is it that whenever Riddick and Imitario pull Jack off of her, their hands are singed? And I said, is he storing power? And it just fucking came to me. His dragon is named Bade, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna sound so stupid, but there's a Pokemon move. There's a Pokemon move called Bide that stores power for multiple moves. until it releases it in one large release of energy against the other player. And Christy, stop laughing, you terrible gutter mind fiend. But it's just funny how his dragon is named Bade, but the Pokemon move Bide is a lot like storing power. That was what came to my mind just now. That's probably the nerdiest, dumbest thing I could have said on this podcast, but it does sound similar.
Nice. I do want to point out, though, right before this battle begins, or this match begins, Liam rushes off to go get Xaden, and he tells Riddick, guard her like you're me. And a lot of people thought...
I love Liam.
...that since Liam dies at the end of this book, that Riddick might take this personally and start taking up the role that Liam held.
Well, that's just very sad.
Yeah, because what if it would mean that Riddick dies?
Well, I don't want to think about that. No. I can't lose both of them.
Yeah, every time somebody brought it up on the internet, I was like, nope, that's not happening.
Nope, I will not allow it.
Nada.
Another thing that I noted during this is that she kind of refuses to use the orange extract immediately. And I was wondering if that's because she wants to do it herself, like she wants to fight him off herself, or if that's because she's against killing people. Yeah, I kind of thought it was the same, that she wanted to do it herself.
Resort.
I think she is against killing people, but again, she managed to save his life while dying. And if she had used it right away, she could have just said, yeah, he needs to go to the infirmary and he's allergic to oranges.
Yeah.
Like the badass he is.
Amazing. A fucking badass allergic to oranges.
It's also funny that he has an orange dragon.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
It's the universe's way of being like, fuck off.
Also, in this chapter, Xaden says something after the battle. He says something like, for Dune's sake. And we're going to talk about it later, but I have some theories about the gods, some theories that will come up more naturally in the later chapters. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I've been noting down every instance the gods are mentioned in another document, and I did it by, specific god, and then I have a unnamed god reference, and I'm at 88 references.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Because when you reread these books, you start to realize, if you're looking for it, the amount of times they mention a god is crazy. And I can't believe I didn't catch it the first read.
Yeah, me too. So after this battle, Xaden decides that he is taking over everything when it comes to Violet. Which, I gotta say, I love Xaden, but he's being a little unfair to Liam. There was nothing he could have done, just like Violet said.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, I'm a little offended on Liam's behalf that Xaden said, apparently I can't trust Liam to report deadly situations. Like, okay, you need to back off. I will defend Liam with my life.
For real.
Somebody's gotta.
But he does get these daggers that he makes her disarm him.
Yes.
Love this scene too. I love all the scenes with Xaden.
Yes, we know you love Xaden. That is your man.
But all these daggers have runes on them.
Uh-huh.
And we learn in Iron Flame that, they have a reason. Any thoughts on what the runes might do? And we know one of them shields her from Cat, and one unlocks doors.
For the dagger, I really do not know. I was thinking maybe like a true strike kind of rune, but she doesn't really need that. He probably would think that wrong to put that on there because she doesn't need help.
No, she doesn't.
She's quite good at it. Maybe one to help her hold it, because I think that was part of the reason he had it made for her.
Yeah, the daggers she was using were too big for her hands.
Yeah. She does have a little section here in chapter 24, I think, where Yaros kind of writes how she's practicing her magic in her head. And I just have to commend Rebecca Yaros for the way that she writes the magic, because, and like the way she writes the magic and the mind working and her practicing using her powers and stuff, it's just really well done. I feel like we've read a lot of fantasy at this point, and a lot of it is kind of meshes together in my brain, but Rebecca Yarros has a very unique way of writing magic, I think.
Yeah, and if you notice, it is very similar to therapy, meditation.
Yeah.
And so even though we can't perform magic, we can still relate to it.
Right. Like grounding yourself.
Yeah.
Bringing yourself back to the moment, putting something behind a door.
I feel like she makes it
that's very
feel
true.
realistic. She makes it feel kind of earthy and, like you just said, grounded. So it you know, it feels like something that we could see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, for anybody who's done meditation, the putting yourself in a spot, your safe spot, and grounding and putting things behind doors and locking things away, shutting things out, that's all very relatable. It's something that we've done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, practicing the mind.
Okay, on to the squad battle.
The squad battle.
I have questions.
Okay.
And a little bit of criticism for Violet. I know it's hard to do, but in the squad battle, they have to do some kind of flying obstacle course. They have to climb the gauntlet. They have to do all these things. They have to wield whatever. She doesn't let Tairn hold her in. And for flying maneuvers when she's training, I totally get that. This is a game competition thing. There is no reason why she shouldn't have let Tairn hold her in. She was...
I also think that you're competitive.
I am competitive. But, I mean, you have teammates. And I feel like her pride is getting a little bit in the way here.
I do think because her teammates are banking on her, part of me agrees that she should have let Tairn do that. But I was just like, whatever. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, she's going to be stubborn about this. Be stubborn about it.
Yeah, I mean, I get training. Definitely don't let her try to hold herself there. That's the only way she's going to get better. This is not training. And also, question, she couldn't get up the gauntlet the first time without the knife that Amber Mavis had a bitch fit about. Did she use the knife again when she had to climb the gauntlet for this? And did they bitch fit about it again?
Amber Mavis is dead. I'm pretty sure nobody is fucking bitching.
The next person to do it's going to be out. That's what they're thinking. Xaden is watching. I do think it's weird that they moved the final challenge up like immediately after the sparring matchups. Like as fun as it is, it's one of my favorite chapters in the book. I enjoy that chapter a lot when they're doing the scavenger hunt kind of. But I don't really understand why they moved it up so fast. Was it to make sure that they weren't unprepared, I guess?
Probably. Though, since we have a moment, we talked about General Sorrengail before, and we kind of missed some opportunities to talk about Panchak, but we know there are enemies within Sgaeyth. So I want to talk about these people that aren't part of the class. And so here we have Panchak. He is commandant of the quadrant. He is somebody who Tara says in the 3rd chapter, I think, says that this is a stepping stone position for him. He wants General Sorrengail's position, and then after that, he wants Melgren's. And Violet's like, oh, well, he's never getting that. And so he feels like a politician, somebody who literally fails upward. He only comes to the first formation when there's a trial or, and he comes to graduation. He didn't come to war games after that call in the middle of the night. And who else? We all assumed that Atos was the one that, positioned Varish into the vice commandant position. But as the commandant, wouldn't he be the person who hires that
In
person?
theory.
I mean, Atos could have influenced him some way. When I read this again and I heard that, what Tara had to say about him, this is stepping stone, where he wants more and more, and that he's lazy. He doesn't do much. He was fumbling with the codex, whereas all the students can practically quote it by heart. I feel like he's shady, and we don't know his signet. We don't know anything else about him.
You're right. Yeah.
And I wonder if he's the one who brought in Varish.
That is weird.
And I'm certain Varys was a Venin. I could be wrong, but I'm certain.
I mean, that would make a lot of sense, realistically. Yeah, I never really thought about it until you brought it up.
There are other leadership people that I feel are kind of shady. But I think he's shady.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's hard for me to keep track of the professors, who they are. I don't know if it's because there's so many people. I don't know if it's because their names. I can remember their names, but I don't remember what name goes where for some reason.
Is Panchek the neck snapper?
No, that's Carr.
No, that's Carr.
And he's shady too.
Who is it?
Yeah.
Carr.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, but
he's shady
doesn't he
too.
end up a little unshady later? Doesn't? No?
No, he's the one who...
Brittany's like,
apparently
no.
I'm mixing him up too.
He's the one... Yeah. He's the one who came out whenever they were having that formation of, okay, we're all flying for Erasure or staying here. He came out and he was like, you don't know what you've done! And he tried to use his fire power to roast them.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
He's shady.
Okay.
I don't know if he's working with the Venin, but I don't like him.
Okay. I need a professor list, a good and bad, because,
Noted.
I think they've all come together in my mind.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to write that down. Yeah, I'm going to have to type up a list or something.
In that Sheets document, I haven't written them down yet, but I have a professor tab. The only ones I'm really sure of are Immaterio, Devera, Grady, Carr.
Yeah, I can remember Devera or I always want to say Devera and Professor Carr.
There's one more I'm not remembering, I think, but I don't know. All right.
Okay, back to War Games.
So I think Panchek is sketchy, and he is still on my you could be evil list.
Yeah.
We do get to learn all of Violet's squad's signets here.
Yes, very fun.
Heaton breathes underwater. Nadine unravels wards. Imogen erases memories.
Really strong signets.
Yeah. Although,
like crazy signets.
I think the dragons have something to do with that because they ended up with a whole boatload of shit that other squads are kind of...
Unraveling wards is nuts.
It makes me wonder, though, in Montserrat, Xaden's point of view, he says, doesn't Dane realize that they would use his signet against other riders?
No, Dane does not realize that because Dane is too stupid to know half the shit that goes on, which we will talk about later. And I'm assuming is going to be included in the rant that Brittany.
Yes. But unraveling wards, that seems like that would be used against riders. Erasing memories? It makes you think, whose memories have Imogen erased that they know her signet is erasing memories? How did Heaton figure out that they could breathe underwater?
Swirlies.
Swirly.
Sorry.
But it's interesting to think how these signets would be used.
How they were discovered and where they're going to go with it.
Yeah.
Is it something they have a feel for that just they know?
I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure Violet used her lightning and she was not aware when she kissed Xaden.
For sure. Mm-hmm. But she was also a little incapacitated at the time.
True.
So you might argue that other people might have noticed more.
Been a little more connected.
True.
Maybe she thought that little zing was
little tingles.
The tingles, yeah. The tingles.
But I'm sure for Imogen, hers could have easily come out when somebody learned something that she didn't want them to. And if she fought hard enough and all of a sudden they couldn't, then she would know that was...
I wonder if hers is contact. Does she have to touch them for it to work?
Oh, no.
We don't know much about it. We do know that she used it at Montserrat, but it also begs the question, how many times has she used it? Has she used it on Violet? Has she used it on Xaden?
That'd be crazy.
If she takes the memories away from the writer, does the dragon remember?
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
Does she get to view the memory?
Ooh.
Also a good question.
Because wouldn't that kind of be like Dane's?
Except for better.
It depends on how it works, I guess.
Yep.
Moving on.
So, Lilith's office.
I just had one question.
Not really.
Is Violet the only one that read those letters?
According to what we know, probably.
Okay.
Because she was the only one who went through the desk.
Okay.
Yeah, my first thought was about the letters because I just never noticed when I first read it that the protests against the conscription laws were happening in Tyrrendor. And for some reason I never picked that up, but it's mentioned here and then it's also mentioned later.
And my question was, when she looks at the map, she says, I think it's in the letter too, that the southern wing are calling for reinforcements. And isn't that the wing that Orally said her brother was stationed at, and that it was pretty much a desk job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the inconsistent, well, I mean, I'm sure it's a purposeful inconsistency, but
Right.
these people, I guess, are having to lie to their own family members about what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Okay, so on to Montserrat. We find out that Rhee's family is close by, and they go visit. And Mira learns, which of course Mira also happens to be here, Mira learns that her little sister is kind of a rule breaker.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which she should have known from the beginning, I'm just saying.
Yeah, like realistically knowing Violet as a person, you would kind of know that.
I think she's proud of her for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Mira is really fun this whole time we're at Montserrat. I think the first time I read this section, I wasn't as much of a fan of her. I wasn't as big a fan of hers because she is a little intense, but I feel like she's actually just one of the best characters. Like, she's so willing to, like, give it to you, honest, just confront you in your face. And I think that's what's so great about Mira. Kind of like Imogen in a way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we do find out that Mira saw some dragons across the border, which I theorize are wyvern.
Right.
And then Xaden shows up. Then we get the scene in the briefing room or whatever. And we get both Xaden's point of view and Violet's, since Rebecca Yarros did release Xaden's in the paperback. But
right.
I have a rant about the nepotism. So you have Mira, who literally was a battle-hardened, risked her life leader who went across borders and was recommended for the Star of Navarre. And because her mother is her mother, she ended up getting the downgraded Order of the Talon. Whereas Dane, as Commandant Panchak puts it, the squad's leader is supposed to put together a tightly knit unit that can carry on with a mission after their demise. Has Dane done this? No. If anything, Violet and Rhee have held that team together. Riddick and Sawyer, their friendship, Liam, they have formed a tight-knit unit. And it is in spite of Dane, not because of him.
Yeah. It is in spite of him.
He's a dumbass. He's a fucking dumbass. The fact that he doesn't even know that you get called out as third years, the fact that he doesn't know what Xaden's powers are. I mean, sweet Jesus, where has he been this whole time? I mean, newbies coming in know this shit.
That was my other point was, okay, so he calls out Violet on the flight field for not telling him about her not being able to keep her seat. The whole quadrant knows. Why should she have to go tell him? Why doesn't he know? When we get to see Rhee as squad leader, she knows who's having trouble with math or whatever subject. And Dane lets his emotions control him. He doesn't act professionally at all. Quite literally, Violet is flipping Xaden off and he's just like, meh. I mean, he's probably kind of turned on by it. But all Dane can see is his squad members' perceived inadequacies. He tries to coddle her, to take her out. He hinders her instead of helping her, making her stronger. And then in battle brief number 1, first day, Devera gets up there and says, just so you know, y'all may be called out. And then he's like, no, we won't. That's not right. Emery and Heaton are in his squad. How does he not know that they've been called out? He just they didn't show up to formation today, so I guess I don't know where they are, but who cares?
Yeah.
And then he becomes wing leader?
He sucks.
It's like Romy and Michelle's Guide to Battle Brief. I mean,
Yeah.
he's such an idiot.
Even Violet was like, even Violet in the next book is like, well, it isn't all nepotism. Yeah, it is. Heaton's a great fighter. Why aren't they in leadership?
Yeah.
It's not just about Dane being a good fighter.
You know, we haven't really seen a lot of that either.
Nope.
Violet does say, well, obviously Dane has already done the sparring and kicked everyone's ass except for Xaden. I think she says that in one of the chapters. But she says, oh, he's afraid to fight Xaden.
She was talking about
We never actually see that.
Yeah, we don't see him fighting, do we?
I thought she was talking about Dane.
Say that
We
again?
don't see him fighting, do we? Dane?
No.
I think there may be one scene.
I don't know. I just pictured him running around slapping people. I don't think he's a good fighter.
That's great.
I don't think that he's a good leader. I don't think that he's a good choice for wing leader. I think that he was absolutely chosen to be wing leader because of nepotism.
Yeah.
And that is it.
Yeah.
And literally when somebody says, yeah, I've been called out, Mira wouldn't be asking the question if it wasn't possible.
I also wonder if he was made squad leader because of his signet, because I think that once they figured out what his signet was, and they also know that he is the son of Colonel Atos, I think that he was strategically placed there to watch Xaden.
Well,
And I think he was strategically placed there to join the ranks. Like, they want him to grow in rank because of his signet.
I could agree, but originally he was in second wing. He got moved to fourth wing because of Violet.
Right.
I have a theory.
That's true.
What if he is the one that Imogen has been practicing on?
Oh my God.
How great would that be?
Christy. And this is why we love you. Because that is fucking nuts. And a great theory. That would be so funny.
Oh my God. Yes, that would.
Like, yeah, Dane sucks because he just doesn't have control of himself anymore.
That's a
Poor guy.
Why is Dane there? He questions why Xaden's there, but why is Dane there? Did he participate in the battle? No, he did not.
Yeah. Speaking of Dane versus Xaden,
Yeah, they get pulled out into
what about
the hall.
the dick measuring contest that we have in chapter 27?
Oh my God, the guy that was like, y'all just want to whip it out and measure?
Yeah. And notice that in the notes I called this Dane's public KO because he really got knocked the fuck out on this.
Oh yeah.
Poor Dane. Yeah, this scene is just fantastic where they have this battle brief with Mira and she's trying to coach them on, like, this is how you should be thinking, as opposed to, like, here's the realistic way to approach all of this. And it's really helpful and really useful for them as cadets. And she's like, Dane, what the fuck are you doing? You suck at this.
Mm-hmm.
And even though she doesn't want to say Xaden would have done a better job, she kind of admits it. She's like, Xaden? He's like, I'm not a part of this. I'm not a part of this.
Yeah. In the hall, when they're talking, Xaden, in his point of view, was like, I don't know how to deal with siblings. I don't know how to deal with siblings. And then the wards fall, which begs the question, why did they fall? If they fell because the daggers were taken out of the armory, who's the traitor? Who did it? Is it a coincidence that they fell when Violet was there, who is a highly valued kidnapping target and an easy way to kill Xaden? Is it a traitor working with the Griffin Riders, or were they working with the Venin?
Well, this is also where they start speaking to each other in their minds, though.
Yeah.
Which I think is just fascinating. It makes me wonder, how long has he been able to do that?
He does say in
How
his
long has he been able to do that?
POV that he just tries it out at that moment.
Of course he did, because he's just Xaden and he can do whatever he wants. But yeah, it is really interesting that the wards fall, and it does make me wonder, was it always that easy?
I mean, for real, I just have to go to the armory and steal a bunch of daggers?
Like, is that it? I thought that Mira's ability to put up shields was like a big deal, so it just makes me wonder.
It's confusing, but I don't think that we can even potentially guess on who the traitor is because we don't know anybody there except for Mira, Devera, and Second Squad, which sucks because I'd like to.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would like to guess, but there are no options to guess.
Well, the wards fall, but that one girl, she can get rid of wards. What's her
Nadine.
Nadine.
That is true.
Which I would not put it past her.
So there is a character. Yeah. There is a character with the ability to do so.
Yeah.
That just happens to be there.
Them.
Yeah. So that's a good point.
Another point I want to bring up is Tairn, when he shows up, he said that he was doing what he could to help. Other than firepower and whatnot, they talk about the dragons having magic, but did we ever really see the dragons perform any magic?
Mm-mm.
Other than
I've never seen
fire?
it that I remember.
I mean, and
No.
Darna stops time,
Yeah.
but she's a baby and she's going to lose that power.
As far as I know, no.
It makes me wonder, what can the dragons do? They talk
What
about
are they holding back?
Yeah, they talk about having magic themselves, but what did they do? None of
Is
them.
that why they bond, though? So that they can channel all of that energy into one thing.
I don't know. I mean, we do see Tairn use his magic to hold Violet to himself, but that's
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Speaking of channeling, it's not long after this that Violet begins to channel.
Yes. Do we want to talk about that scene outside of Markham's office?
Yeah?
I don't have much to say. She does learn she learns how to talk to Xaden in his mind. She does note that she sees a golden light out of Endarna's window.
Right.
But not necessarily the stream of power that we see from Tairn and Xaden.
Right.
So it makes me
Which is interesting.
wonder about that.
We learn about a lot about Xaden in this chapter. Well, maybe not a lot, but a little bit.
A lot of somebodies on the internet pointed out that she asked him about having any siblings. And it's several times the question of him having siblings comes up. And he's like, no, I'm an only child. And for some reason, Bodhi being his cousin is not good enough for people. And they're theorizing that Bodhi is his secret brother.
Why?
Exactly. I don't know. I'm like, why is him being a cousin not good enough?
I don't really get that.
Probably just
Neither.
lineage. I mean, if you've got another brother from that same line, from the same rebellion leader.
But
I will...
Bodhi is Finn Ryerson's sister's child. So if Xaden doesn't have any children, wouldn't Bodhi be next in line anyway?
Yeah, I would think so. Speaking of lineages, I do want to talk about the gods for a minute. So what is interesting to me is that a friend of mine pointed out, we were talking about the book, about all the mention of the gods and how Xaden is mentioned to look like Amara, and how there are some weird coincidences with Violet and killing people, death, stuff like that. And Amara is the queen of the gods, right?
Yes.
And Xaden looks like Amara.
Rhiannon.
They both do.
She said that Xaden came in like the warrior of Amara or something like that.
I interpreted that as looking like Amara. I interpreted that the quote there as that he looks similar to Amara, because Rhiannon is compared to Amara for mostly, I'm assuming, her skin tone and for her beauty. And same thing for Xaden. He is a noted person of color, and he is considered to be absolutely gorgeous. And so they're both compared to Amara, I thought. Because she says he comes in with angel wings or whatever. So even though she is saying like a messenger from Amara, that was my interpretation, was that he looks like Amara. The quote about Xaden looking like Amara. Xaden fills the doorway like some kind of dark avenging angel, the messenger of the queen of the gods. So I assumed, because they're saying he's like a dark angel, which kind of implies that he's beautiful, and that he's being compared to the queen of the gods, that they're saying he kind of looks like Amara.
I looked at it as he was, again, like a servant of the gods, like a warrior for Amara.
Yeah, but both. Let me see. I wonder if there's another one that made me think that he looked like Amara. Well, maybe it's just because I think I maybe did the equivalent, because Rhiannon looks like Amara, and Rhiannon is a person of color, so I just kind of assumed that, I don't know. If Xaden looks like Amara, like I thought, then maybe there's something weird going on with the fact that Xaden is connected to Amara, and Violet is connected to Malik, because Violet has this weird thing going on where everyone's like, oh, Violet can't kill anyone. Violet can't kill someone. She just could never do it. And then you also brought up that, like, later on when Liam comes to her, you think that's a message from Malik. And so I was just thinking, because Amara is the queen of the gods, and because Malik is the god of death, then maybe, in theory, Amara might be the queen of light, or possibly the god of light / the god of light, even. So because we have this weird juxtaposition between Violet, light, Xaden, dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
I feel like the gods are also a part of that. Xaden's signet is darkness. Violet's signet is literally lightning. Light. And I think it even goes further with the idea that her signet as lightning could also bring back somebody's life force. In theory, if you could, shock somebody's heart back alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I also think that, I don't know, there's just too many, coincidences in the fact that Xaden is often paired in a text with Amara, and then Violet has this weird thing around her that everyone's like, oh, she can't kill anyone, and so she's also connected to Malik. And so I think it's just really weird. I don't know what it means, but I think that it's very significant.
Well, Rebecca Yarros did say the gods would come into play more in the future books.
Right. And, Violet talks a lot about how she has trouble getting over how callously people die in this school, and she's known as someone who can't take a life. And then there's this quote in chapter 24 from the Book of Brennan. I know you don't want to hear this, but sometimes you have to know when to take the death blow, Mira. It's why you have to be sure that Violet enters the scribe quadrant. She'll never be able to take a life. What a weird thing to say. I mean, I get it that you are saying, oh, my little baby sister is just too innocent. She could never kill somebody. But it made me think, was there a weird grand conspiracy from everybody to get Violet into the scribe quadrant? And that's why at the last minute, Lilith Sorrengail was like, I can't do this anymore. You can't be in the scribe quadrant because you need to do the opposite for some reason, because she forces her last minute to not do the scribe quadrant. It's just really weird, because why is Brennan telling Mira Violet has to enter the scribe quadrant? That's so weird. And if you think about that in connection with the fact that she has the possibly the life sucked out of her maybe as a baby because Lilith might have been a Venin or whatever. All of these theories, I think, connect. All of these things connect.
I think
that sounded like crazy rambling, but I think it's they all connect.
Good theory.
Christy, what are your thoughts on that?
I do think it's a good theory, and I like that you have brought the gods into it. I think that it is, God, there's so many kind of theories going around in my mind, and that plays into some of them. And of course, mine usually gear more towards, I think, the dragons. But even then, as you were saying it, I was like, oh, what if the dragons are the gods or something? I don't know. But just
Tairn does say we don't pay attention to your puny gods.
That's a great point, because Brittany just said that they aren't giving us their real names.
Yeah. That's what made me think when she said that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good theory. I really do. And the fact that you've paid attention to that much detail is incredible.
Thank you. I was really doing the historian work on this. I I am trained to look through a text and pick out an argument, and damn did I.
You really did. Well, I mean, there's so many pieces of it that I think start to connect. I mean, even the part before that I was talking about with the scars on his back, and that when Violet's asking about it, and it says that it actually startles Sgaeyl that she's asked. The fact that she's startled in the first place is weird. And that Tairn is kind of pushing her off that subject. I think that, I mean, that easily could tie into something like that.
I wonder if
That's so true.
Startled Sgaeyl.
Yeah.
It says it in a way, though, as if the question itself, when she asks about it, that's what startles it and that it bothers Tairn. And he politely tells her later to stop asking questions.
Why are you pushing, Silver One?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay,
I'm
sorry
about
my
you.
rant was super long.
Good.
You're good. Well, do we want to talk about war games?
Yes, briefly.
Yeah, just a little.
The main thing...
That's not how I meant that.
The main thing I want to talk about is her lightning. She does, in this battle, discover her signet power is lightning, and it's blue and silver, which I think might be significant. I mean, she has her silver hair, and also, speaking of colors, I do want to point out, I find it interesting that she describes Xaden's eyes as gold-flecked onyx when she is a gold dragon and a black dragon.
Oh,
just
okay.
Color connecting shit all over the place here.
I know, right? But the lightning that I see outside is generally whitish, yellowish. So blue and silver makes me think that there's something different about this lightning.
A reason.
Yeah.
And it could be that it's, my theory is correct with her power, her signet actually being pure power and not just lightning. It's just what she feels most comfortable, as Felix said, shaping it as. And especially since her mom was a storm wielder.
Yeah.
That could just be what she was used to. So I think that there's something about the color of the lightning. Now,
Zeus working through her.
Do we think that this is the sky power that is talked about in the fables? A lot of people do.
I literally had not even considered that.
We can talk more about it when we get to the Venin battle, because one of the Venin does say something about you wield the power of the sky and you don't even know how to use it. But
interesting.
A lot of people...
That's literally a direct quote.
Yeah, a lot of people are theorizing that this is the fabled power of the sky from the Fable of the Barons, that the third brother wielded or something.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to look into that. That's wild. Okay, if she's the third brother, does that mean her other two siblings are the other brothers?
No clue.
Oh boy. Okay, well...
I was also very disappointed in Jack's supposed death. He should have suffered more.
Oh. I thought so too. He died so fast. I wanted him to suffer.
I wanted him to see it
And then we find out.
What a quick death.
Yeah.
She should have hit him directly with the lightning.
And Violet's the one that's freaking out about killing him, like throwing up later. And we're like, he didn't die slow enough.
I mean, he deserved it.
We would so be like the witches from Hocus Pocus and torture somebody to death,
Absolutely.
Let's start with the toes.
Come, little children.
I have to say, in real life, I can talk about this, but I also have trouble killing cockroaches. So
I do too. I don't kill bugs. I have a bug catcher. I feel like there's enough taking of life as it is, so I put them outside.
The only bug I will kill is a cockroach. They are my enemy, my forsworn enemy, and I will find them. They scare the shit out of me.
If it flies at me, then it's, death sentence, sorry. But if it's just crawling on the ground, the only time I'll kill it is if I absolutely am forced to, and then I also apologize before I do.
Yes.
Because I'm weird.
What? It's not weird. I think it would be a horrible death to be crushed. Like, that seems like that would just be such a horrific death to feel that, and I just can't do it to a little bug.
But I apologize, and the apology is essentially meant for the cockroach, but it's not like the cockroach really understands, so it's meant for me.
I think I was put on this earth to annihilate cockroaches. I am sorry. I do agree that being crushed would be a terrible death, but if they didn't want to die, they should have stayed out of my room.
At least it's quick most of the time.
I'm hunting them down. I'm sorry, Christy.
I mean, I put them outside. Don't get me wrong.
I'm sorry.
They freak me out. They scare
I love other
me.
bugs.
But yeah.
All right. Well, anything else about war games that should be mentioned?
The only thing that I think is, well, one, her amazing quote, "I am the sky and the power of every storm that has ever been." Great, great quote. And then also the fact that afterwards, Xaden says to her, this is a quote from the book, "I start to shake my head, but his eyes narrow on mine. You might not like it. You might even loathe it, but it's power like yours that saves lives." And again, I think that is a reference to her ability possibly to work like a defibrillator, using her lightning to like literally bring people back to life, possibly, even though she just killed Jack.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not how Xaden meant it, but...
Well, I mean, and the way he meant it is also true. If you have a dictator in control and you have to go to war with them, you are literally saving the lives that dictator would have killed.
Yeah.
You mean if you have a dictator, you wouldn't just hold up signs telling everybody that they're terrible? You would actually like act on it?
Yeah.
I agree with that. Anyways.
All right. Well, Xaden comes and visits Violet while everybody's partying, and she's in a mood, throwing daggers. And I have to say this. He says, "Is that me you're throwing daggers at?" And she says, "No, but it was you 20 minutes ago." And he says, "Who is it now?" And she says, "Nobody you know."
Oh, I think I know who it is.
I think
It's
I know who
the
it
X.
is too.
It's gotta be the X, right?
I think so.
It's gotta be him. For sure. It's gotta be, because she's probably like, she was throwing it at Xaden and then being like, ugh, I'm even more mad thinking about every guy I've ever liked. That's so funny.
Well, okay, so they end up getting it on. And the only, I have to say, this is one of the most awkward sex scenes that I've ever read. And I love that because that's reality. Well, other than the car scene in Zodiac Academy with Orion and Darcy.
You mean awkward as in like they keep trying to rearrange
burn the curtains?
He's too tall for the
comfortable
desk. And it's not the right angle.
It's realistic.
It is, and I love it. The only thing I didn't absolutely love was I take the fertility drug. Shouldn't
I hate that.
Already know that? Talk about it afterwards.
Well, you know what? It's supposed to be like a good role model for people, okay? You should always use contraception and always ask if your partner is using contraception or if they are protected or if they have STDs. This is a PSA.
That is true. But how many people actually remember?
Not hot, but it can be.
Talk about it.
I just think you should work it in there somehow if you can.
I will say this is where the audiobook does have its downsides, especially for this book, because a lot of it comes off as them talking through the whole thing, where in actuality, they're talking mind to mind. And to me, the talking mind to mind is a lot more believable than them having a full-on conversation during sex.
Yeah, and it's more intimate.
This is the one thing I don't get with how he can hear mentally her thoughts. Is it just the thoughts that are directed at him? Because she has a whole lot behind the scenes going on too, as far as things she observes. So can he hear all of that as well? Because are they not technically the same? Your internal monologue versus thoughts you're kind of sending out to somebody?
As far as I read, or my understanding of it, it's the thoughts she has to direct towards him. Though he's an intrinsic, so he picks up some of her thoughts that she doesn't mean to send.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that whole fertility conversation does bring up a question. She says nobody wants quadrant babies running around. If Xaden's grandfather was bonded to Sgaeyl and died while still in the quadrant, Did he get somebody pregnant while in the quadrant?
Brittany.
Or did he do it beforehand?
Well, obviously he did it somewhere.
These are the kind of questions that you asked, and I'm like, how did you even think of this? I guess he did. I guess.
I need to know about Grandpa
Grandpa Ryerson.
Ryerson. I believe I can't say that word.
We need to know about his sex life.
I don't need to know the details.
Would Grandpa Ryerson have been a writer if he was from
wrote
Terrandor?
something.
Yeah. He was bonded to Sgaeyl.
I'm dying. I guess he was. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't put that thought together, but anyway. Anyways, this is a really good sex scene. I don't think it's as good as the next one, but
yeah.
You know.
It's a first time.
Yeah.
And they do destroy the room.
Yeah.
The famous destruction of everything.
Which makes you wonder.
The wardrobe.
What were people thinking outside with lightning striking after she just called down lightning? Were they like, oh, there's a storm? Or were they like, what the hell is Violet doing?
I feel like they were thinking the second one.
And then,
like, what is she doing?
She's
out of control.
Violet's neighbors. What were they thinking?
Run.
Unless, did Xaden put up a sound shield? With all that destruction of everything in her room except her bed?
Yeah.
Fire drill.
I don't know, but I think we're going to have to discuss more next time.
Yeah.
We have so much more to talk about. I can't believe how much more we still have not covered. We got to talk about Naelin more later. So much stuff we have left. Incredible.
Well,
any last thoughts?
Is it in the next chapter that Violet gets violets from Xaden after she wakes up with him? I love that he stayed.
Yes. Isn't that cute?
I love that he stayed.
He is precious. I love that. We'll end there. We hope that everyone enjoyed this week's episode. We'll be discussing the 4th episode of Fourth Wing, chapters 31 through 39, next week. New episodes drop every week, so don't forget to check out last season's discussion on the Zodiac Academy, available now.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. That like and follow are super important for us to continue to bring you new episodes each week, so please, please, please do so. Thank you for listening to the Midnight Readers Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Happy reading, listeners. Don't stay up too late.
Hey, listeners, if you're interested in us starting a Patreon, we've been considering it. And we were wondering what you were thinking. We were thinking we could add bonus content, maybe some access to the notes that we talk about, but you guys never get to see. Maybe some videos. What do you guys think? Let us know. Contact us on Threads or Instagram and let us know your thoughts.